Today is the story of the life of Idi Amin, the dictator known as the Black Hitler. Let's start with a brief introduction. Idi Amin was the third president of Uganda and a dictator who led a successful coup d'etat. Famous for the Ugandan genocide, Idi Amin is known as one of the most brutal, but also one of the most bizarre and crazy toxic men in the history of the world. Amin left no autobiography or record of his life, so it is unclear when and where he was born. Scholars believe that he was born in Koboko around 1925. Again, this is only speculation based on inaccurate data, but in any case, Amin was abandoned by his father when he was still very young. He therefore had an unhappy childhood with his mother's family in a rural village in the northwestern part of Uganda. In 1941, Amin enrolled in an Islamic school in Bombo, and 5 years later, he left school to join the British colonial army, the King's African La France, as an assistant cook in the 4th stage. The same year, Amin volunteered for the infantry and began serving in the 21st KR. Around this time, he fought against Somali rebels in the Shifta War in Kenya. He was also deployed by the British Army in the Mau Mau Rebellion and participated in the suppression of the anti-British nationalist movement. Finally, in recognition of his achievements, Amin was promoted to the rank of lieutenant in 1961. And he succeeded in becoming Uganda's first officer of color. After Uganda gained independence from Britain in 1962, Amin was promoted to the rank of colonel. Amin rose to the rank of colonel, a position that gave him command of Uganda's armed forces. In his speeches, Amin talked about his time in the military and boasted that he had fought in the Bomber War during World War II, but the Second World War ended in 1945, so his statement that he joined the army in 1946 was a complete lie. As a side note, Amin was also an athlete during his military service. He was a big man, standing over 6 feet tall, and was a Ugandan lightweight boxer and swimmer, as well as a rugby player. Amin, who had gained tremendous power, joined forces with Milton Obote, then Prime Minister, to stage a coup d'etat against Mutsa II, then President of Uganda. Obote abolished the parliamentary delegation that Mutsa had initiated, created a new constitution, and proclaimed himself president. Amin led an army to attack Mutsi II's palace and deported him to England. Amin then took over the military government as army commander. However, a rift gradually began to appear between Amin and Obote over the issue of the Congolese rebel leader. When Amin learned that Obote planned to arrest him on suspicion of embezzling military funds, he staged a military coup in 1971. While Obote was attending an international conference in Singapore, Amin blockaded the antebellum international airport, occupied the Kampala area, and closed the main roads surrounding Obote's home. It is thus announced that he is a military man, not a politician, and that a military government has been established to manage the situation only until it is normalized. They also dissolved parliament and banned political parties. On the other hand, the Western powers viewed Amin's coup d'etat as a positive step in the extermination of the leftist regime, and even praised it. This was probably because the Cold War was still going on at the time. After exactly 1 week, Amin declared himself Uganda's president, defense chief, commander-in-chief, army chief of staff, and, for the moment, I will do everything. He also declared that he would eliminate every single person who supported Obote. Meanwhile, Obote had joined some 20,000 Ugandan refugees in a refugee camp in Tanzania. Together with the exiles, they attempted a coup d'etat, but they were poorly prepared and were unable to take back Uganda. Amin became increasingly angry and began to carry out his plan, saying that he would advance and punish all those who supported Obote. In just a few months, 3,000 officers and 10,000 civilians were killed. In addition, those who opposed or resisted were arrested and mercilessly butchered, and their corpses were used as food for crocodiles in the Nile River, a truly psychopathic practice. Some zoologists say that Ugandan crocodiles, which originally attacked women doing the laundry and children washing their heads, learned to taste humans during Amin's regime and lost their wildness when they were fed. Amin's brutal and bizarre slaughter lasted about 8 years. Estimates by human rights groups put the death toll at as high as 500,000. After 1972, Amin declared economic warfare, a series of policies to expel Asians and Jews from their properties. Uganda's approximately 80,000 Asians, most of whom are of Indian origin, are believed to have come to Uganda for a better life when India was a British colony. Amin expelled the Asians and Jews and then uprooted their businesses and property, but the economy collapsed because there was no one to properly manage it. Uganda's economy, which had been in decline for some time, hit rock bottom. In addition, criticism from the United Kingdom and other Western countries has intensified. India even broke off diplomatic relations with the United Kingdom and other Western countries. In the end, Amin's regime entered its final days, and the number of Amin's supporters and aides began to decline rapidly as unrest grew within Uganda. Amin ordered an invasion of Tanzania to root out insurgents within the army and divert discontent within Uganda to the outside world, let alone to rebuild it. However, the army that Amin had dispatched had already been cleared of reactive factors, but some of them crossed the Tanzanian border and deserted, and the fighting began. Amin's invasion force was gradually pushed back by the Tanzanian army until the capital was invaded. Seeing this situation, Amin immediately boarded a helicopter and fled to Saudi Arabia. Amin began living in a house and a grant from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the condition that he would not get involved in politics in Saudi Arabia. In an interview at the time, Amin said he had no regrets about the brutal regime. Amin, a brutal dictator, died in Saudi Arabia in 2003 of high blood pressure and nervous paralysis, living a quiet life as if he had died. His remains will be buried in the cold, bare earth of the Ruwais Cemetery in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, without a coffin or grave marker. The news was greeted with several days of joyful celebration by the Ugandan people. Amin's bizarre acts of barbarism were the cruelest of all. Amin's torture methods are notorious, especially the tortures he devised. He stabbed and cut off men's genitals and tortured women so severely that they might as well have died. Not only that, but the buildings in which the prison was built are shocking. Most notably, the prisoners' cells were not equipped with doors, and the corridors were flooded with water so that high-voltage electricity could flow through them. Doors were probably unnecessary since there was absolutely no escape. They also made the prisoners walk on wooden planks with nails sticking out of them and had 2 prisoners fight each other with hammers. After starving the prisoners for days, they would feed them human corpses and even catch live vipers to be cooked on the spot and served to the diplomatic envoys. Whenever he felt annoyed or bored during a meeting, he would smack the secretary on the cheek or order him to crawl down on his crotch. As I mentioned earlier, Amin, who was Uganda's light heavyweight boxing champion, allegedly sent a challenge to Muhammad Ali. Also, in order to pay back the debt to the whites who called blacks slaves, the whites who were operating businesses in Uganda at that time called them and made them carry their heads. On the same day, Amin, who was married, gave an incredible performance to show the African leaders who attended the celebration that he considered South Africa to be an enemy. Amin's performance consisted of bombarding a target depicting Cape Town, the capital of South Africa, in an unpopular fountain. However, the planes that went out to attack failed to hit a single target, and Amin was humiliated in front of the other leaders. Angered by this, Amin strapped the pilot's instructor to a target and ordered him to bomb the target again, saying that if he could not hit the target again, he would use you as the target. Alot complied with the order and succeeded in hitting the instructor who was tied to the target, at which point Amin burst into laughter. The leaders of the other countries who were watching the scene could not stop shaking. Amin was a polygamist with 7 wives and about 40 children. They had about 40 children. One of the wives, Kay, was pregnant with Amin's child when they divorced, and when Amin learned that she had had an abortion after the divorce, he took surprising action. After killing the doctor who operated on her and then severely murdering Kay, she showed the other wives how she had rearranged and reattached her limbs. If I were to compare the method of defeating the enemies of the state to boxing, the only way is to KO the opponent, no matter the means or method. This was actually a terrifying line uttered by Idi Amin. This is the life story of Idi Amin, the dictator known as the Black Hitler. This is the story we don't know,